Hey everyone, welcome to Wednesday. We are continuing our theme this week talking about personal brand. Last week we talked about, the value of building brand, why it's something you want to be focused on. I just wrote a LinkedIn post around the importance of having cameras on. Gosh, Fee, it's my pet frustration. I feel blind when I'm on meetings with people and you can't see even just the nod of the smile and the face and all of those sorts of things. It's such a crucial part of being visible, of showing up, of participating. And of course, all of those things together with a whole lot of other things, everything you say and do, everything you don't say and do, build your brand. And today we're going to talk about starting to craft out this picture. And of course, you've got a background in consumer marketing, brand marketing, so no better place to start than with you.
I think this is kind of a double-edged sword, right? Because personal brand is something that is so wonderful to get into and to really understand and to understand myself and to know myself in order to communicate that and for my audience, for the people that matter, for them to know what it is about me that's special, that's unique. And I think sometimes the word brand makes people sort of almost back away. So it does come from that, that world of consumer marketing and brand and that sort of thing. And this idea that we had to position a product and we had to get it known in the marketplace and have a target audience. So there are some things that are actually really useful from that process around this. And I think, it's important to pick the pieces that are useful, but not to get lost in the idea that you're becoming a marketable or consumable product. That's not what's happening at all. It's actually a lot more authentic than that. It's actually something about sharing with the world all that you have to offer, all that you have to contribute in a way that makes sense to you, but also makes sense to the people you're trying to influence.
Yeah, and I think there's lots of lessons from consumer marketing around, the best jam doesn't sell because it's tasty and we use general language around I don't even eat jam, so it's probably not a good example, but it's tasty and it's got a wholesome flavor or something. Like whenever you're selling something, the more specific, the more unique, the more that you can bring something to life. And the language I use in personal brand is around taking something from flat, I call it 2D, to 3D, actually bringing something to life. And here it's about being specific. It's around using unique language. I was doing some work with a client yesterday who's in insurance, and we're talking about business insurance versus asset protection and business continuity. The minute we actually start to put some specific detail into language around her skill, her capability, her experience, immediately I know more about who she is. And I, as a someone who's consuming her personal brand or who's getting to know her, I have a stronger sense of what her skill, capability, experience is and how potentially she could help or support me. And that's important if you're a customer. That's important if you're a potential employer. That's important if you're a stakeholder in an organization. So I think there's always a tendency to want to stay at the general. And we see this all the time, great stakeholder management, strong communication skills, strategy expert. It's like corporate bingo in terms of the language you can use. And it's not helpful because, that describes about, millions and millions of people. And so I think there's this opportunity, which sometimes can feel a little bit uncomfortable because perhaps you're putting yourself a little bit out there. But also, of course, this all takes work. The more that we can get some more specifics, the more that we can get nice language. And I'll never forget a time when I was doing some personal brand work many years ago, and I'd reached out to you as someone in my world and said, hey, I really love some feedback on how you describe me. And you came back with some beautiful language. And I remember thinking, oh, I really like that. That really, when I sit in with that and I try that on, I'm proud of that. That feels really nice for me to use, but it's not something I would have come up with myself. So I think there's a real opportunity here to obviously do some work to unpack, what you see as some of your brand attributes. And, we do a process called brand mapping where we kind of just get a whole bunch of different stuff out, like your values, your strengths, your interests, your knowledge, your experience, get that all out on a paper and start to look at, okay, how could I articulate this into something that feels good, feels authentic, and that I'm really proud of.
Yes, I love this piece about doing the work to explore what it is that's actually something that I own, that I have, that's different, that actually when I show up in a meeting, in a room with a group, there's something I add to the mix that's different than if I wasn't there. And that does take a little bit of time. That unpacking piece for yourself is really important, but also going and getting some intel, getting some understanding from other people, just as you did. And as you know, we would advise people is, get 3 or 4 really good questions and ask people just to respond to them and just see what language they use. Because sometimes they'll add something to the mix that's really powerful, and maybe you wouldn't have thought of those words in that way. And then I think there's a really important part to this process of synthesis. So now, as you said, the mapping, I've got some really nice pieces, but when I bring that together and when I distill that into something, it will be unique. It will actually be yours, because there is actually no other human in the world who has all of that map for themselves. And that's the lovely thing with this and it's actually what I always loved about brand work, is it didn't matter if you worked on 4 or 5 in the same industry. There was something unique about each one. There was something that they did. There was some story, there was some background, there was some attribute, there was some benefit that was different. And I think this is the piece we're looking for, is that spark, that ingenuity, that originality that you and I know each person has.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think really important not to focus on perfection. It's, on some level, it's always a work in progress. We talk about 3 stages of brand evolution or personal brand evolution. This is me made up. It's not marketing theory. It's your as-is brand, your articulated brand, and your aspirational brand. And your aspirational brand is that one that really talks to where you're heading from a career point of view. What is it you want to be known for in 2 to 3 years' time to achieve your career goals? Your articulated is exactly what you've just said, some of that synthesis around getting some of the information around how others see you, and then putting some good language around that. I think what I love the most when we talk about personal brand work and confidence is one of the benefits of getting feedback from someone else is all of a sudden they see you in a way that you don't see yourself. And immediately what I call this brand uplift, where you're like, oh, wow, I wouldn't have described myself that way. And so if we think about that piece around confidence, that can be really, strengthening in terms of your ability to really step in. I think the other piece is when we've got good language and that synthesis you mentioned, all of a sudden we stand back, when we stand taller, our shoulders are back, because that feels really authentic and it feels really true. And I think, this piece of, on some level, whenever we're doing brand work, we're almost wanting people to stretch a little bit to where they learn in terms of brand, is that they're actually still stepping into that picture of how they want to be known and how they want to be described, because most of the time that is how other people see them. It's just the process of putting good words and language now gives other people good words, language to describe them, and then sort of really go out and advocate for them on their behalf. So I think that's a really interesting piece. We often see women want to stay really stay small language, really safe language as well. And I think the opportunity when we think about personal brand is confidence, is to really step in and step up. It probably should feel a little bit uncomfortable. It should feel like you're boasting a little bit. And it should feel, but at the same time, you should feel really proud of where you land.
Yeah, I really love this piece around the link between confidence and personal brand and how we've been exploring that. And I think when I look at the research that we've done and that whole piece about the way girls are raised and the way we're brought up, and how even when we get into organizations, it's often our modesty or our humility or our kindness or our, we're almost conditioned to be quite self-deprecating or not to be putting ourselves out there. And it's and as you say, it's safe to do that. So this whole piece gets really entangled with this idea that, I don't want to be seen as self-promoting or boastful, or there's something going on there. And in that conversation, we do take that step back. We do get smaller because we don't want to give the wrong impression. And I think there's a really important kind of balance we need to make here between obviously, you know, we don't want people to be, you know, really boastful and overconfident, that sort of thing. And yet our experience, or certainly my experience, I think yours too, is that most women are erring so far away from that, that we're actually saying, no, 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 in your case, just take that a further step, be that little bit more assertive about your qualities and assertive about what you bring. Because if you do that, you'll probably land at a point that's kind of just right in terms of taking this process on. And you know, don't beat yourself up. It is an iterative process. You're not going to get everything about your personal brand sorted in the first time you come to this work. You know, it really is something that happens over time, and you grow and evolve. So your personal brand is growing and evolving. So get some information, do what you can with that, share it with people, and really take that step to. I think it's almost like the confidence. The act of confidence comes before the feeling. The act of sharing my personal brand comes before I'm absolutely kind of congruent with it. But in doing that, the congruence arrives.
Yeah, nice work. Let's leave it there. I'd encourage you to start to think about what you want to be known for, both now and into the future when it comes to your career and your future career plans. And we'll be back next week to talk more about activating your personal brand.